Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's On at Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be taking a look back at our favorite top 10 films of the year. Most of them have been on Disney Plus. We're going to kind of bend the rules a little bit on a couple of these, I think. So these are all have been released by Disney, Lucasfilms, Marvel, all the rest of it, Searchlight Pictures and stuff. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. You can also find us on whatsondisneyplus.com. And yeah, so let's jump into it because 2022 has been one heck of a year. Well, we'll say this list is not in any order. So number 1 doesn't mean any more than number 10. We didn't want to go too far in that because that's a little bit tricky. So I'm just going to go down the list of which way I wrote them down. So my number 1, Avatar: The Way of Water. I mean, I loved the first film. I thought it was great. I was not bothered about the second one being in 3D. Was going to go see it in 2D. Disney did invite me out to a special showing, so I saw it on a really good 3D film. And I literally got to the end of the film and was like, wow. The fact that it's like never once, I don't remember once thinking, oh, I might need to pee, with this 3-hour plus movie, plus like, I'm just like, and I just remember getting to the end of it going, it was a visual feast. It's going to be interesting to see how it works when it arrives on Disney Plus in 2023. But I enjoyed the story. I mean, I've seen Avatar 1 probably about 10 times. I do actually really like it. I like the Pandora world. And so this movie just for me was like, I wasn't too sure. But after watching it, I'm like, it was a proper big blockbuster. Just something. And I think because it's been so long since we've seen anything with Avatar, it really did just kind of go, wow, I loved it. It was easily my favorite film of the year.
And I haven't seen it, and I will see it when it comes out on Disney Plus. The 3-hour runtime is just I can't justify it for a movie that I'm only on. But I am glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad you got to try it in 3D as well.
Because I was dead against 3D. It was
right.
very much against it. So now it's just kind of really interesting to see. And there's a lot of buzz around it and stuff. But for me, that was my favorite one. But I kind of broke my rule a little bit on that they had to be on Disney Plus because it was just like this was way too good not to have it on there.
It'll be on Disney Plus early next year. We know that. So
yeah. So what was one of the films of your top 10?
Before I do my first, I'm just going to point out that while these are not in any order, my list is definitely divided into two. The first half are movies that I genuinely would put on my top 5 list, and then the 5 remaining, I've got to fill this list out with something because they're 10. So we'll get to that when we get to the second half of them. They're still good movies, but in a normal year, I probably would not be putting them on the top 10 list. We'll worry about that when we get there. The first one, again, in no particular order, is Prey. Which was a Predator movie, came out on Hulu over here. And if you had told me that I'd be putting this on my list at this time last year, I would have kind of laughed in your face. There's no way a Predator movie, and the trailer looked kind of blah. But then when we actually watched it, they did a fantastic job with this. The acting was great. The story was really good. My thing going into it is like, Arnold Schwarzenegger and his team had a really hard time with a Predator in the 1990s. How are you going to have, a Native American doing a fight in 17, whatever it was, and they pulled it off. It's really, really well done. This is a top tier one. Don't sit on it.
Yeah, this was on my list. It's actually, it was very much like my initial thought of movies was this was top 3 kind of territory. It was easily the best. I think it was the best film. I think that was directly onto Disney Plus here in the UK. This one just like I remember it. I think like because it's just over 90 minutes. It's fast. It's kind of pretty. The pacing is good. I loved the original Predator film. I was a big. I remember that being a big. Not that I should have been watching it, but it was always. I remember having like Predator action figures again of but it was that kind of thing of like this franchise, and then it kind of drifted off. Predator 2 was okay, but then this one was like it went back to basics. And honestly, this is one of those films we got that could have been released in cinemas and could have brought in a couple of $100 million. I mean, it wouldn't have done billions, but it would have done enough to. This was a fantastic return to the Prey franchise, and yeah, this was just really great just to see this one. And again, big release for the summer. I mean, I think it definitely was. Disney over here was really promoting it as a big film, and catch a lot of people off guard, because I don't think people were expecting this one to be as good as it was.
I definitely fall in that camp. I was not expecting this to be a particularly good movie, and it surprised me. And if this had not been in the let's call it the COVID recovery year for the movie theaters, not for
Yeah.
population in general, um, this would have been in theaters. It would have made some good money, generated some good buzz. So it's unfortunate that it got relegated down to the streaming services, but their loss, our gain. Really good movie.
Yeah, so my second pick was Thor: Love and Thunder. This was my favorite out of all of the Marvel releases this year, which I know it was a very hit and miss film with some people. I really dig the humor, and the it was that kind of thing of, it was a bit silly, it was full of laughs, it was big, bright, and colorful. I love the characters, and for me, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for when I want to be a big spectacle. It was a Thor's, fantastic character. I thought the fact that I'm not normally a Natalie Portman fan of, especially Jane character, I've not been that fan of her, but I enjoyed the comic book run that this was kind of based on, and I thought they covered it well enough that it was like, okay, she's actually okay in this. I really just like Taika Waititi's like humor, and I think that is a key aspect of, like, he can turn up and just do like an advert for the MTV Awards, and I'm laughing. It's just, there's something about him. I've seen a number of his movies. His humor it resonates with me, and I think that's why I like this one so much more.
I'm with you on this. This is also on my list in the number 2 spot, and like you said, a lot of people were kind of negative on this. Maybe they were hoping for something a little bit more different from Ragnarok, or kind of like an escalation, and it didn't quite bring that. But I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and the other factor might be that we've gotten a bit overexposed on Taika's work in the last couple of years, because also on HBO, Our Flag Means Death came out. That was another series by him. Where What We Do in the Shadows is up to season 4. Wellington Paranormal's on like season 2 or 3. So there's a lot of Taika out there right now, and maybe people are feeling a little overexposed on it. That said, I really enjoyed it. It's what I wanted from this film. There were certain bits and pieces that didn't quite hit, but the overall was very well done. And I particularly loved that black and white sequence where they're fighting on I don't remember, like the little tiny planet thing out there. That was such a well done sequence. And then the big problem with the MCU, I wish they hadn't killed off their villains again in the end, because Christian Bale was doing really well.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else is on your list this year?
Let me take a look. Next up, Death on the Nile, which was the Agatha Christie, I believe, was the author for that. Yes. And which is interesting, because I did not like the original one that they did several years ago from the series, the Murder on the Orient. Yeah. I did not like that one. So I went into this kind of like, try it out. And this one was so much better than Murder was. And they did a very good job of bringing the story to life. All the actors and actresses did a great job. This one's maybe not like super, super amazing, but it's definitely one of the top tier movies of the year for me.
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good. I think it was better than Murder on the Orient Express. I have a different Agatha Christie film on my list. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was kind of one of those, like I wrote out, like, it was probably in like, I probably got to about 14, and then it was like, oh, I need to trim some. So that was on my trim list. Again, this was something that came out, I think it only came out like, it was like literally like 45 days later on Disney Plus over here. I love this kind of style. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the new Glass Onion film over the Christmas weekend. I like, Death in Paris. I like these kind of things. So I enjoyed this one. And I'm really glad that we're getting a third one in the franchise. But no, that one's a good one. So I'll lean into that one with See How They Run, a Searchlight Pictures film, which is kind of based on Agatha Christie's like The Mousetrap. I just really enjoyed this film. It was lighthearted, it was fun. I loved the cast was amazing. It really caught my attention. I think watching it and not knowing really anything about it, and just enjoying the story and being taken along for it. And watched it again when it arrived on Disney Plus. Yeah, this was one of my highlights of the year. Was one of my, I'd probably say it was one of my favorite films of the year, and that was like definitely kind of Agatha Christie connected on that one.
And I do like Mousetrap, which
Yeah.
I saw in theater in London many years ago. I don't actually remember watching this one, to be
No,
honest. I'm not sure if I
I,
did.
I think it went to HBO Max in the US, but
Okay.
it was again. This is the great thing with these Searchlight picture films. They've been about 45 days, so you've really not had to wait that long to get them. So that was on my list. What other film was on your list this year?
Let's see. The next one that I have written down was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Mm-hmm.
So not too much to say about that since we talked about it relatively recently, but it's the other MCU film that I really enjoyed. Definitely had some issues with parts of it, particularly the final fight and characters who are supposed to be smart acting stupid. But overall, I enjoyed it well enough to get it up onto the list, which I realize is kind of not a huge recommendation for it, but I did actually enjoy this. Looking forward to catching it again on Disney Plus early next year.
Yes, so we haven't got an exact date yet. They did put out a little like teaser trailer this week of 2023, and in there was Wakanda Forever. So I'm guessing it's not going to be too far off. I really enjoyed the film. Not a patch on the first. I would just straight up say not a patch on the first one. I love the whole aspect of bringing in the more. I could have done without Ironheart. I know she sets up the new Disney Plus series, but yeah, it's a really kind of odd one. I was a bit torn. Again, this is the problem I think for me with this one is this was a case of, again, compared to like Fall and Thunder, of it being like, oh, this one's a little bit more somber, serious. And I think I've realized I do like a little bit of humor in my stuff. So this one was a little bit heavy for me.
It was, and they of course had to work around the fact that Chadwick Boseman wasn't there to reprise the role, which kind of influenced the story as well. It made a large part of the story about moving on, coming to terms with it, and that was the main arc. And then, of course, they added in killing off the mother as well. So, it's a much more serious movie in many regards. That said, it's still a good one. It was a good year for the MCU overall, actually, in terms of films.
Yeah. And we might as well jump on to the other one that was on my list as well, was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I really enjoyed this film. I love the whole multiverse aspect to it, which is quite weird considering I've always said how I don't like the multiverse. Generally, I prefer things to be a little bit more simple. I liked the idea of them bringing in these different characters, the jumping between the worlds, and a kind of that continuation of WandaVision, a little bit kind of skew with in terms of making Scarlet Witch kind of the villain, but yeah, I thought this was great, and obviously it's what kind of fed off of No Way Home, and yeah, this was to me one of the highlights of the year. I really enjoyed this film.
So this is actually one of the first films that's on the list, but only because I have to fill the list out items, which isn't to say I didn't like it. It was a fun movie. There were some very good bits to it, but overall, I did not think it was up to the standards of stuff that had come before it, including the first Doctor Strange. And there were parts of it that actively annoyed me, such as them bringing the Illuminati in and just immediately killing all of them off in what was supposed to be a very like, oh my goodness, you killed off Professor X and Mr. Fantastic, and it was kind of a like a poke in the eye kind of deal for characters that we've waited a very long time to see, and then to have this happen. It was appropriate for the film. I still felt it was kind of cheap writing.
I felt like they could have done. We needed to see more of them. So then, when it happened, maybe if it happened, you then kind of felt more for it. It kind of in that way, it needed to have been established a little bit before. Maybe had some of them turn up in WandaVision or something like that. And I don't know. It was I get what you mean on that, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought this was a nice follow on from No Way Home, which I watched again the other day. So it was just like, so I enjoyed that one. So what else did you have on your list?
So this is the last of the top half of the
Yeah.
list, and I know this is not going to be on your list. Werewolf by Night. We actually weren't sure if we were going to include these ones on the list because they're not really movies; they're one shots. But kind of threw that one on the list there. I really enjoyed it. I loved the art style of it. I loved the throwback to the schlocky horror slasher films. Even though I don't really have nostalgia for them, I didn't really grow up watching them. I thought it was a really good throwback to them. Was not perfect. Definitely had some things it could have done better. I would have liked, maybe like Moon Knight or something to show up in there. But in the end, this came out much better than I was expecting it to, and I genuinely enjoyed it. And I ended up watching it twice. I ended up seeing it on Halloween itself.
Yeah.
So this one ends up. I know it's not on yours though at all.
I have watched it twice. I watched because we got an early version of it, and then I watched it again when it arrived on Disney Plus, so I could see it like in 4K and see if it looked kind of. Yeah, I just didn't enjoy this one. I enjoyed aspects of it. I like Man Thing. I just didn't really connect with this one at all. It just I don't know what it was. There was just something but I will say, and this is the kind of thing of I might not have enjoyed it, but I am really glad that they tried something. And that is, I enjoyed Direct by Night much more than the actual special. But I think there was that kind of aspect of going, they're doing something a little bit different here, and I like that. And that was the thing. I think it gave us some extra bonus points because it was just like, that was pretty good.
And then they followed it up, of course, with Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which continues this format. So I really hope that they drew enough viewers between the two of them to continue this format. It's, not every character in the MCU needs a 6 or 8 episode miniseries. A lot of them can't carry a series on their own. This is an alternative that I hope they continue to use.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I was just it's definitely nice to see them just trying it because I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, but it wasn't in the same league for me to get onto this list. I enjoyed it, but it didn't kind of qualify for me. So I'm going to throw another film on here, which was Turning Red. I thought this was a lovely story. I really enjoyed the aspect of it being set in the early noughties, set in Canada. It was kind of. I think I went to Canada just for WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, and it was around the same time as this, and I just kind of brought back those memories because I could kind of relate to it, and I think it was the thing of and I enjoyed the fact that it was a little bit different from the American side, and I enjoyed the aspect of them bringing in some different things. I love the metaphor of what this was about, and primarily it was like, I just wish that we'd had this when we were kids because it would have been really good to kind of, I don't know, we would have understood it because probably most of it would have gone over our heads because we wouldn't have had the internet. But I thought this was a lovely story. I thought it was great. I love the panda. I mean, you can even see the little panda pop. I really enjoyed it. So I thought this was a real fun little series and just fun. I really enjoyed it. I like the music in it with the boy band stuff and the whole the culture different. It was just to me easily the best animated film I'd seen of the year. Now I will say we haven't seen Strange World because we're recording this like a day or so early because of Christmas, so it comes out for us tomorrow. So I haven't seen it yet. So that one probably could have maybe made a list, but we're gonna have to wait and see. But it was at the time of recording, we haven't seen it, so it's kind of annoying because this week we had like The Barbarian. We've just had and we've got Banshees of Inisherin literally just got added yesterday, so I haven't had a chance. So on Christmas Eve, my plan is to do Strange World, and I'm having a bit of a full day of just like catching up on some movies and stuff while building some Lego. And so it's the kind of thing I don't know with these being released like a week ago, but that's some fun of some of these things.
It is. I haven't seen any of those either, so they're not on my list either. But Turning Red is on my list, so to talk about that briefly. This is, again, we're now in the second half of the list for me, so these are ones that, they're good enough for the list. I wasn't quite as enamored with Turning Red. I think the message is super important. It's And like you said, this is something that I wish we had had as kids. Maybe demystify some of the things that it talks about, especially coming from the male perspective, where a lot of these things are just not talked about, or you talk about them for 1 week in school and
Yeah.
then it disappears again until you're like dating or whatever, which happens
Yeah,
much later.
and especially when you live in a household with just your brother and your dad and your mum and stuff. These stuff doesn't tend to get talked about as much as I'm like with sisters and stuff.
I grew up with 2 sisters. We still didn't talk about any of this, or at least not in front of me. So again, very important messaging, a lot of positivity in that. But the movie as like an actual story didn't really click with me all that much. I was kind of not really engaged with it for the most part. But the animation is great. Voice acting is really good. It's a solid movie. The message is far more important than the plot is, though, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at this and it's like in such a different league to like Lightyear. It's just such a completely different league of like that's a film. Just like I'll probably might watch it again at some point, but it's not in a rush to watch it. I've got a different movie here now, Fresh. This was released on Hulu in the US, Disney Plus over here. This one was a really weird movie of Sebastian Stan basically kidnaps women and keeps them alive while slicing off their body parts and selling them on the internet. This was creepy. It was I really liked it. And I'm not a horror. I'm not like that kind of, but I really enjoyed this one. This one was a real breath of fresh air.
in a sense, sure. It's not on my list, but I did appreciate, this was a year for Sebastian Stan to be doing all sorts of stuff, because he's here in this. Last year he had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he's just been kind of all over the place with his roles, which is good. Let him expand and try different things and take advantage of his current popularity. That said, I did not engage with this movie at all. I checked out probably 20 minutes into it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I think the trouble is by then is you hadn't really got into like the hook of it of where.
I mean, I did already know what the hook was, because the trailers kind of gave it. They didn't explicitly say what was happening, but there's going to be this cute and funny rom-com is going to turn very dark very quickly. But yeah, I don't know. Didn't engage with it, but I think that's just a me thing rather than it not being a good movie.
Yeah, no, I thought that one was pretty good. So what else is on your list today?
Let us see. The next one on my list is Hocus Pocus 2, another one I don't think that was quite up there with you, but again, I had the history of growing up with Hocus Pocus, so I have a little bit more of a connection to it. Again, it's not a super amazing movie. I think if you liked Hocus Pocus, you will like Hocus Pocus 2. They did a good job of recapturing the feeling of it. But if you didn't like Hocus Pocus 1, you're not going to like this one either. That said, the whole point of watching it is for the 3 sisters. I don't care about the kids in the slightest. But they recaptured the character really well, which is impressive considering how old the original movie is. And it did a good job of just recapturing the feel. And that's all I wanted from this movie. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it didn't make my list. It was fine. But again, I don't have nostalgia goggles for the first film, and Halloween just doesn't mean much to me. It just doesn't. Honestly, the only thing really I have of like Halloween, like one kids party, and the only real main thing was going to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween parties as an adult. That's literally my entire thing of like free events in life is just not a big thing. But I'm glad people enjoyed it. But yeah, it wasn't for me. Moving on from there for me, The Princess. This one was one that was released on Hulu and it's released on Disney Plus around the world. This one for me, what really caught me off guard. It was like a proper old-fashioned like 90s action film. It was full of action, hardly any plot, hardly any things, and she was just kicking ass from start to bottom. It was stupid, I know it, but this was such a 90s movie. I really liked it. It was just a lot of fun.
This is on my list too. It's good fight choreography. The music is good. The acting does well enough for the purposes of you're not here for the acting. And you do have to suspend disbelief because she's bulked up. She's been training her entire life, but She's also fighting against people like literally 3 times her size at certain points. They have to tag her once and the fight's over, but just ignore it. Have fun. It's a good brain off movie for a solid 70, 80 minutes, and it's better than it has any right to be, honestly.
Yeah. I thought it was really, really good. I thought this one was a lot of fun. So what else was on your list?
I believe this is the last one since we doubled up on many of these. I will mention Lightyear. Again, this is it's good enough for the list. This is me kind of going, all right, I need to finish this list off. What do we got? Lightyear. I'm doing it mostly for the cat, honestly. Socks is the best part of this movie. It is a perfectly fine sci-fi adventure that throwback to, you know, the olden days of like Flash Gordon and stuff like that. It's just that it's missing that Pixar magic. It's missing something that elevates it, because that's the thing with Pixar. You there's always an extra touch that you don't expect, and this movie just didn't have it. It kind of fainted in the direction of it a couple times and then backed off. I also didn't really like the twist with who Zurg was. I thought that was a bit of a cop out, to be honest.
Yeah, it didn't need it. It just didn't need that. It just didn't need it. But it's a real odd one, because I don't think it was it's such a weird movie in the fact of it just did not connect to people at all on many different levels. And in some ways it's a shame, but it's that kind of thing as well. Of like it's that weird thing of like you took Buzz Lightyear and you completely made him somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was like you took a really great, fun character that everyone loves around the world. You know, I've stayed in hotels where it's based on this character, and you know it's loved it. And then they just kind of like made a real. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think as an adult watching it, because I a bit more attention span. But I imagine younger kids have just got bored of this, and it's really fun just seeing him have ads you just still keep getting for Lightyear toys. It's just like we've got this pile of them to sell.
Yeah. Also, it is another movie with Taika in it. He voiced one of the henchmen, so maybe a little overexposure on him. I think the main problem with the movie is expectations and not very good marketing. We didn't know what kind of movie. Was it going to be Andy playing in his room and this is like what's happening in his imagination, or is it just a sci-fi show that happens to have a character that you recognize in it, or what? And the marketing was awful on that. And then, the expectations of it's a Pixar film, it's a Toy Story film, it's going to be superior in every way, and it just wasn't. If you took the branding off of it, if you recast this as a different space soldier in a new franchise, had no connection whatsoever to Toy Story, I think it probably would have actually been better received.
It's kind of like weird thing, as you say, if they called it something. But I kind of feel a bit like that with the National Treasure series. You could kind of you could kind of call this on someone else, and I don't know. I still would have been a little bit generic. It still wouldn't have been great.
It definitely would have been generic, but it wouldn't have come with the preconceived expectations of it being the character from Toy Story.
Yeah, no, it was fine. It just didn't make my list. It just didn't make that cut. So I'm going to move on now to my other choice, which was Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. So this one came out back at April. And now I am a huge Chip 'n Dale fan. I love these characters. These are great. You can see them here. It's definitely for me. This one, I love this character. My mum and dad, literally my mum tagged me in. There's a picture on Chip 'n Dale on the Disney cruise yesterday, because it's just like these characters that I love. This movie totally got me. I am obviously, the 90s feel, the meta. I think that's what I loved about it, was it was not we're just going to carry on the story and try and bring these characters up to now. It was like, no, we are completely taking them out of where they were, bringing them up to now. They're going on convention circuits, they're trying to make money, and it was just like, oh, it's different. It's not the same, and I think that's what worked with it, and you're able to get into it. I just thought it was a lot of fun. It was just a real fun, easygoing film that completely caught me off guard, and was like, yeah, it's again, this was like the top level. Like, this could have been in theaters. This could have come to theaters and could have taken some money. I was thoroughly impressed with it, and it definitely caught me completely off guard of how, because I was going into this like, don't ruin it. Just like, yeah.
I'm not going to say much on this one. I've said plenty. I had the complete opposite. I hated this movie from start to finish. Like, if we were picking worst movies of the year, this is it right here. Number one. I hated this movie. And I am also a huge Chip and Dale fan. I loved the original Rescue Rangers. I loved the shorts. I had them on VHS, and and it was just a Chip and Dale like hour of nothing but shorts from them. I love them. If I see them in the parks, they're fantastic. There was one year I did the 5K at Disney World, and they had Chip and Dale in the Rescue Ranger garbs. I'm like, all right, this is the one I'm stopping for. This is the one I'm getting a picture with. So that was great. And this movie, I hated it from start to finish. Absolutely, like skin crawlingly hated this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is why there's two of us, so we have different opinions on things, and that's
any other films on your list or your top 10?
No, I think we've covered everything on the list. There were a number of mediocre to good movies. We don't need to go into them.
Well, I was actually because you just brought it up, actually, like worst films and stuff. So you got
worst films.
So you got like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and stuff. Now I watched Amsterdam the other day because it got added onto Disney Plus. Oh my word, that was bad. That was so bad. It was like what was the point? It was like, we've got all these amazing actors and no story.
I have not seen it. I was very excited when it was first announced because the cast is amazing. Other movies by this guy have been really, really good. And then the reviews started to come in and like, oh, that's not good. Let's wait to see what people have to say. And people were saying, no, it's not good at all. Like, all right, I will skip it. But it sounds like that might have been the right choice.
Yeah, it just did not connect with me at all. I've also got to put Pinocchio on this list. Now I need to watch the Netflix one, but the trouble is, I didn't like the Pinocchio. I didn't really like the story from the original, and the new version was just so bland. It was so bland and safe. And it was just like, we just did not need this at all. It brought nothing new to the table. And yeah, I was really, I mean, I wasn't looking forward to it because I never really liked Pinocchio. It's probably why I'm not in that much of a rush to. It's like now, I didn't like the first film. I really didn't like the live action one. It's like the Netflix one. It's like, but it's got to be the same story, isn't it? So it's just like, yeah. So Pinocchio for me was one of the like ones I was disappointed with.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's mid-range. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I felt Tom Hanks was kind of wasted on it. Could have gotten almost any other actor in that role and it would have been about the same. And like you, the original Pinocchio doesn't particularly stand out to me. I don't hate it. I don't like it. The island with where all the kids get turned into donkeys and stuff scared me a lot as a kid. That's about the only thing I remember from it, other than of course the song, which has now become one of the main Disney songs. Otherwise, I'm completely ambivalent to Pinocchio, and this movie did absolutely nothing to change that in either direction.
Yeah. Another one which was really hard to watch was Not Okay. Where she's basically like an influencer pretending to go to frat, and that was a bad one. That one wasn't good.
I think I wiped that one from my memory. But yes, I have to agree that was not a good one at all. I get what they were trying for, but they just missed so far. This character is completely unlikable, and I was hoping for her, honestly, to just kind of like get her full comeuppance, and then that was the end of the story. But they kept going.
Yeah. What other kind of films kind of caught your eye that you didn't like?
Honestly, I'd have to bring up the list again, and I don't really want to go trolling through it for stuff I did not like.
I'll give you a hint of a few of them. So we had Disenchanted, which was okay. Yeah, that was fine.
I did end up watching that. If you remember, I didn't see it the week because I saw an even worse movie that week, or not movie, but special with the the snow
Snow Days.
Oh my god. I know it's not a movie, so it doesn't qualify for the
Yeah.
list, but that would definitely be on here.
Yeah.
In the worst category for sure.
We also had Rosalind, which
Yeah.
that was okay. My wife hated it. That would probably have been on her. She did hate one. Night at the Museum, didn't like that one at all. I didn't like that one.
And it's strictly middle of the road
yeah.
for me.
I was just noticing here Matriarch. Now I actually thought that was okay. It was a bit scary, but bit grim, but it was
I don't even remember.
This was like a Halloween one. That was pretty good. Ruddock Rules, that was fine.
It was fine, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Ice Age with the Adventures of Buck Wild came out here in the UK early this year. Came out late last year in the US. That was just so generic. That was really generic. Just notice here, Fire Island. That was a movie I did enjoy. I did enjoy that one.
That was very good. Actually, to be honest, if I had remembered that one come out, I must have glossed over it when I was on. I probably would have put that on the list. That is actually quite good.
Yeah, that was good. Here's one, and this one's got to be on my worst one. And it probably is my worst of the year. Hollywood Stargirl. Oh,
it was better than the original. That's the best thing I can say about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I enjoyed the original. That was a slug. That was really bad.
I'm wondering if they put this one and the original one out just to kind of poke DC in the eye because they have the show called Stargirl coming out on the CW, and I have to wonder if they kept this franchise going just to confuse people. Oh, I watched Stargirl. It was great. Oh, that Disney? No, the CW. That's the only rational explanation I can come up with for them making a sequel for this.
We also got Cheaper by the Dozen. That was another Disney Plus original movie, which was very
bland.
Here's a movie though that actually was the opposite. Better Night Than Ever. That was like such borderline for me to go onto because I really thought that was such a lovely little story, but it wasn't like good enough to go in the top 10. But it was like it was a really good. I gave me a feel good. It was a nice feel good movie. I enjoyed that one. And one I was not so keen on was Sneakerella.
No.
That was not so good.
We are definitely not the target audience for that. I think it's important to point that one out. That it's hard for us to judge that one if you happen to be a big fan of sneakers and so forth. Neither of us are. So that was hard for us to judge, but did not click with either of us.
No. So anything else catch your eye from this year?
No, I think that covers about the majority of it. The rest of the stuff was middle of the road, mediocre, fine if you need something to watch. But yeah, none of them really leap out as this hurt my brain. I want to purge this from my memory kind of stuff. We already talked about those. And then, of course, the stuff we've already watched. So I think that'll wrap it up, and we'll move on to the next stuff in the next episode. Yeah.
Yes. So before we go any further, I just want to do a big shout out and thank you to all of our supporters and patrons, including Jonathan, Jim, Jay. We've got Tim, Chuck, David, Mahmoud, Raphael, Adam, Dana, Ricky, Dave, My Visa Still Works, Bina, Joshua, Dawn, Martin. And we've also then got as well over on Patreon. A big thank you to Paul, Daniel, Elliot, Aero, Caleb, Red Marsman, Cody, Jacob, Darren, the Juice. We've also got Sarah, Lauren, and Andrew. Thank you so much for your continued support. I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas and New Year. We'll be back next week with another episode where we're going to be going through our top 10 series, and we're probably going to be throwing in there some stuff that we didn't like as well. But on that note, guys, thank you very much. See you guys soon. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.